On release, Bunny really captured the attention of gamers for some reason. But looking past the aesthetics part of the character, she packs one of the strongest kits in the game for dealing with mobs and farming out the currencies needed in the game. Gold, Kuiper and modules really do fall at her feet when she exists on the field, almost as much as the ones that simp for her. You know who you are. So in this video I'll be going over my current setup for Bunny, helping you to maximise your farming potential in the First Ascendant and giving you something to aim for if you're farming pieces for Ultimate Bunny just like I did. While what we discuss here will be shown on Ultimate Bunny, it can still just as easily be applied to a regular Bunny with enough investment, and I'll even throw in what I used as a budget alternative for her so you can look to save or just be able to use your catalyst elsewhere. As always, criticism in the comments is more than welcome. I want to be able to make this a space that we can all discuss to find the perfect build, so feel free and go ham. And thank you so much for the support on the channel. It really is a blast to make content on this game, so if you like what you see and want to see more in the future, do me a favour and hit that subscribe button to find your way back. With all that, we're all warmed up, so let's get this build going. So the aim of the build is to farm quickly and efficiently, making quick sprints and finishing off large groups of enemies all at the same time. The less zigzagging that we are going to be doing and need to do with our running, the more efficient that we're going to be in the long run. With that in mind, our best friends in terms of stats to sort out will be our range modifiers and the damage that we'll be dishing out with those hits. If we have to land multiple hits as we dash past to secure the kills, we aren't as strong as we need to be, and it's inefficient for the farming that we need it for, especially if we need to double back on ourselves. So for our checklist and in order of priority, we need skill range, skill damage, whether this is from modifiers or the skill power itself, cooldown to have 100% uptime on our lightning emission skill, and lastly the health that we need to stay upright and farming. We don't want to play into that stereotype of a down bunny with this build. To understand how to properly mod Bunny though, it's important we take a look at her base stats on her abilities to know what we need to mod for the most, especially for damage. Now this build in particular will be focusing in on skills 2 and 3 as you won't require the others for farming, but we'll also take a look at her passive as it does kind of offer some nice damage that we can utilise for stubborn targets. Speed of Light is our second skill, boosting Bunny's sprint speed by a whopping 50% at the cost of up to 12 MP a second. Now this ability is massively important for the build, as not only is it the fastest way to get a bunny up and running after losing their electricity from standing still or just from spawning into the map, it also massively reduces the time taken due to farming and to the speed increase, and will also play an important factor in our next skill for increasing its DPS. Now the main issue with this skill is that MP drain, which can very quickly empty your resources and leave you stranded and no way to activate the skill in combat without those little blue balls of MP that you need to get lucky to drop for you. Our main aim and to try and have this as active as possible though, whether this is from faster kills or other ways in the build utilising and refreshing our MP. Lightning Emission is our next skill and will be your main focus for the damage in terms of farming. Activating this skill can only be done with electricity charge though, so you best get running. The reason this is so effective for farming builds is down to its ring effect hitting all enemies unfortunate enough to find themselves within it. When we mentioned building for radius earlier, this is the main skill that's going to benefit from it, and the more that you can cram into it, the easier it is to hit enemies, making your farm just that bit more effective. Looking at his stats though, we have a base cooldown of 30 seconds and the ability is only active for 20. This means that we need to introduce at least 33% skill cooldown into this build to achieve that 100% uptime that we wish to have. Damage wise, the emission hits for 148.7% of your skill power, with a further damage increase of 15% per 10% of your electricity bar that's full. Unfortunately, we can't modify the extra damage that's gained from the electricity through mods, but we can for the base hit and the damage over a time it applies through electrocution. Now due to the percentages on offer here, we will see a nice boost from affecting the skills modifiers and the base skill power if we can do both, but with it being over 100%, it would make the most sense to aim for skill power before modifiers if possible. Lastly, we have our passive and the double jump damage, dealing 128.8% of our skill power within a 4 meter range. Now the idea with this passive is that if we ever find a boss target or something that's just a bit more stubborn than the rest of the stuff that we will be mobbing, or even if we just run out of MP, we can start double jumping to proc that emission skill at the same time to chunk out a bunch of damage. So that's the basics of the skills and how they all kind of work, so let's have a look into the mods and gear that we need. So on my screen is my current go-to farming build. Now this is just one catalyst on top of Ultimate Bunny that you can go into more. You can feel free to be able to spec more if you feel like constantly want to level her up and just keep increasing the efficiency of her. But to be fair, I feel like this is a very happy spot that we can be in. There's probably one mod that I would add in, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, and we'll just make sure we swap those sockets to all. So the main thing that we want to focus on is obviously getting that cooldown, and we want to increase the range and then focus on the damage. So the first thing that we do have here going on the top row, we do have MP conversion. Now this does give us at max a 36.5% reduction in our cooldowns at the cost of being able to go into our max MP. Now unfortunately that is a little bit of a downside because obviously our MP is going to affect our sprint, but the cooldown here is massive. It means that we don't have to worry about an additional mod taking up the slots or anything like that. So this is going to be the better one to be able to put into this slot. Now that 36.5% is, as you can probably tell, over that 33.3% threshold that we needed to be able to have the 100% uptime of this skill. And as you can see here, we do have a 19.1 second cooldown, and that means that when that 20 seconds, so once this kind of, once they see the icon kind of refresh itself, let me know that I can activate it again, that pretty much tells me that the skill is done, so therefore I do need to be able to activate this once again. So you can reduce this down more if you really want to, but I just don't think it's just got no use. It's pointless. So therefore just having MP conversion gives us enough cooldown for what we need to be able to do with this build. Now on top of that, we do want to go into the range like we've already discussed, so therefore we do have skill expansion fully maxed out to give us 92.3% extra range, and we also have gone for frugal mindset. Now this is going to work in two ways basically. It's going to reduce the cost of our skill, so as you can probably tell, in some cases we do have red numbers, but it is actively working against that as well, and that's going to reduce it down by 8.5% skill cost, and then on top of that we do get an extra boost to our range, so again another 22.2% range on top of that, which means that we're going to be coming out at that 114.5% increase to our radius. And as you can tell in the skill, it is affected slightly by our reactor, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. But as you can see, I'm able to get up to 16.8 meters as a radius, which is huge. Now you can go higher, you can go all the way up to 21 meters if you really feel like you need to, but I feel like this is plenty, and this, in terms of like most of the spawns for enemies and all that kind of thing, this pretty much hits anything that you need it to. So it's kind of like a happy middle ground. So if you feel like you need to be able to go for more range, feel free, but I'm quite happy with where that currently comes out at. Now we do have Stim Accelerant. This is also going to be our main way of being able to give us some kind of survivability. So this gives us a 234% increase to our HP. Now you can swap this out instead and go for the blue mod if you want to, which is just going to give us less HP, but it also means that we don't have the downside of that max MP. So feel free to be able to swap in whichever one you prefer. Me personally, I prefer having the extra HP, even if it is something that's insignificant as it is for like 16%. But you know, feel free to cater towards how you feel like you need to be able to play. Now Stim Accelerant is going to be the main way of keeping ourselves alive. We haven't gone for any defense, as you can tell, so the more HP the better, and that's the reason why I have gone for that one instead. So that's the, you know, that's going to filter into all of our stats, and you'll see that once we go out of the screen. Now the last kind of three mods that we do have here are all going to be around damage. It's all going to be filtering into increasing our skill power, increasing our modifiers, everything like that, so we can start hitting for some nice chunks. Now we do have the Singular Specialist and we do have the Singular Master. At some point I will like to have this fully maxed out, and that will kind of like finish this all off in terms of like the amount of damage that we're going to be doing. But Singular Specialist is going to be a power modifier, so even though it doesn't show on the screen right here, you're going to see that basically it takes your skill power and puts it into this ability, because this is a singular, and it's not going to be the same for all abilities, because as you can tell the Thrill Bomb is a fusion, and I believe the ultimate is also a fusion as well, so it is purely dedicated for lightning emission. And we do also have Singular Master, which is going to give us a massive chunk of our skill power on top of that, and then also affect our modifiers, so it's going to be hitting it at both ends, which is great. And then we also have Decimator, which is going to be our yellow mod. This is going to be our Architect. And after defeating an enemy inflicted with debuffs, our skill power modifier is going to increase by 5%, and we're going to be able to do this up to 10 stacks. So this is going to max out at 50%. Now if you do that, this does affect the item card, and this will go into our damage. This will also go into our electrocution as well. So we're going to be dealing even more damage on two ends, and that's why I really love what Decimator brings to the table. On top of that, even though it does say defeating an enemy inflicted with debuffs, the electrocution that comes from the skill here is going to be a red notification, or kind of like a red icon under an enemy's HP bar, and that counts as a debuff, so therefore you are able to automatically proc this yourself just from using the skill, and that way it's really easy to get this all the way up to 10 stacks. So therefore it's just a massive increase on top of everything else that we currently have going on in the build. And once again, with the Ultimate Bunny, you actually get given the star socket to be able to slot this in pretty much straight away. So I absolutely love this mod, and if you're going to look out for one yellow mod that's going to kind of complete the whole build, I would recommend Decimator as pretty much the top priority when it comes to that. Now, in terms of one mod that I would love to be able to slot in here that's just really going to help out the rest of the build, it's actually going to be, where are you? It's going to be MP Collector, and that's that one there. So because this isn't an ARC tech, and it is its own separate, which is support tech, you can slot this in at the same time as Decimator, so you're absolutely fine there. And this just gives you a way of being able to keep your MP going, which keeps your sprint going, so you're not going to be as reliant on those little blue balls. So I do think that MP Collector is a great shout to be able to go in here, and if you have it, feel free to be able to go for HP Collector instead if you don't feel like you need that instead and you just want some more sustain. So those two mods are probably going to be the only ones I would recommend, but yes, once I've got a couple of like capacitors, once I've got the slots and the modules and all that kind of thing messed about with, that's what I'm going to be slotting into this build. Reactor-wise, Bunny really benefits from a tingling reactor, bringing out the most skill power that we can do for her abilities because she is going to be an electric-based character. For farming though, I would recommend a Singularity Reactor, as the lightning emission ability is the singular subtype, which we've already covered, so you can really push the extra DPS into that ability. Now for the weapon mounting, it doesn't really matter as long as it's a weapon that you own. You won't be firing it off at any point if you do this build right, so just get the boost to skill power and just leave it at that. For the additional rolls though, I'd recommend grabbing a gold skill range, as you can see here, to push out the range as far as you can. So this one here gives me a 25.3% boost by itself, which is huge. I'm essentially taking everything that already is on there and just giving it an extra quarter, which is massive, and especially with the ability that we're using, it's just god tier with that. Lastly, a roll into damage would be perfect, so either an electric for general use or singular for specifically farming with this one would be best in slot. Components wise though, you'll want to push up on HP and defense side of things to keep your bunny upright at all time. I have kind of changed it recently. I have now trying out with the Slayer set. The Slayer set just giving you additional skill cost, but being able to give you that massive skill power boost is just huge. So therefore I'm messing about with that one. But we also do have a specific set that is kind of like key to Bunny, which is actually going to be this one here, which is the Supernova. And as you can see, just having a 2 set on this will give you an 8.6% increase to your skill powers and your modifiers, and that's going to go across the board because you're always electric. But don't be fooled by the 4 set, because the fusion skill power modifier doesn't affect your farming a bit of that we're going to be doing with this build, so that's just completely dead in the water. The only thing that we will get from the 4 set is going to be that electric skill attack on an enemy afflicted with electrocution, and then it's going to do the lightning bolt, which then has a cooldown of 2 seconds. This does do some decent damage. It's great against those stubborn targets like we've already mentioned, but you don't necessarily need it. So, you know, if you're looking for something that's probably a little bit more consistent, I probably would recommend Slayer over Supernova. But if you are going up against like bosses or something like that, something that has more HP and is probably going to need that lightning strike, Supernova is probably the best place to go for that. Lastly, we do need to talk about our weapons, but just not in the same way as you have done in past build videos, as you just won't be using them the same way here. As long as you're matching to your reactor, you're working with the right stuff, but it's the modules on the weapon that can offer us some extra bonus. So looking at my Divine Punishment here, so if I go and swap into here, you can see the modules that I do have. Now I do have the standard stuff in terms of like increase in DPS, so we do have the firearm attack, and the fire rate up, and that's just going to give us some nice kind of like bonuses here. But the main thing that you want to have in here, it's 100%, so this is the one mod that you definitely want to be able to slot in here regardless, is going to be Defense Master. Now the reason with that is that while this is attached to a weapon and would suggest that you have to use the weapon to get the kill, it actually doesn't work that way. It's once you defeat an enemy, you just gain this extra defense. So this is going to be our main sustain. This is why I don't have defense built into with the modules or anything like that. It's because I can just slot this into a weapon, and then I can just get a nice defense boost just from that. And it's quite a chunky one as well, 128.3%. So yeah, if you're ever going to take any mod in with any bunny farm or any kind of bunny build, Defense Master is the way to go, because this is going to give you some really nice sustain on your build. But there we have it, that is my current go-to farming build for Bunny, but I did say that we would have a look at normal Bunny just in case you need a budget build for the time being, or you prefer to get a setup and spend your catalyst elsewhere. So swapping over to normal Bunny, I've only put in 2 of the catalysts here. I haven't put an energy activator, so this is quite easy to be able to get up and running. But the main thing that we're kind of doing is similar. We're going along the same kind of lines, except for looking for a little bit more sustain with this one. So we do have stim accelerant, well as before, to be able to have that extra HP. We have gone for skill expansion to give us extra range, which is quite nice. We have gone for MP conversion once again to get us under that 33%, well, to make sure that this is 100% up kind of thing. And then we also have increased attack with our singular specialist and our electric specialist. So it's got less utility compared to that of Ultimate Bunny, but this still has more than enough to be able to get those kills for you, and it has more than enough range to be able to still stretch those ranges out and still be able to be really effective at mobbing. So if you are looking for like a budget Bunny build, this is the one I would recommend. But if you have got access to Ultimate Bunny and you're starting to push things out a little bit more in terms of like the damage and the range and the efficiency, then the Ultimate Bunny is the one that I would go for. And that brings us to the end. As mentioned at the start of the video, I'll be making plenty more First Descendant builds in the future, so if that all sounds good to you, please do me a favour, drop a like and subscribe so you can find your way back for more. But this is the section I want to hear from you. How are you finding the First Descendant? How do you feel about Bunny? And would you like to see a bossing build from myself in the future? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video, and as I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, I'll see you all on the next video.